Before I talk about Freya, I want to talk a little bit about how power is portrayed in the God of War series, particularly in the original trilogy, and it's pretty straightforward. In God of War, power is measured basically always by physical or magical strength, by the ability to defeat one's opponents in battle, and this makes sense, it's an action video game. Almost all of the gameplay is made up of combat. Of course, power is going to be defined by physical and magical strength. By that measure, Kratos surely must be the most powerful being that exists in this universe, since he kicks everyone's butts all the time. Zeus was, I think, the most powerful enemy he ever faced, because Zeus was clearly physically stronger than anyone else. In God of War 3, the battle against Zeus progresses through like 20 different phases, each phase more bombastic and crazier than the one that came before. I've seen many people say they were disappointed by the final battle with Odin in Ragnarok, because in comparison to the confrontation with Zeus, the battle with Odin is over quickly. Odin's fight is actually pretty easy. I think this is a symptom of a difference in the kind of power the two antagonists wield. Zeus was all about literal, physical, magical power, whereas Odin's power lays more in his ability to manipulate those around him, in his scheming and his plans, in the deep well of knowledge that he can draw from. When all his manipulations and schemes and knowledge failed him, Odin was a relatively weak opponent, at least relative to Zeus. Anyway, the point is, in the original trilogy, power was defined by strength. In the Norse games, this starts to change. In God of War 4 and Ragnarok, I think Kratos is on a journey to discover a very different kind of power in his later life as a father, a moral strength, a strength in empathy and understanding. Now, let's get back to Freya. Before I say anything at all about Freya, I want to watch the clip of her introduction in the game. And while you watch, I want you to think about power. Think about how power is portrayed. Think about who appears to have power in this scene and why. Alright, here we go.
We didn't know he belonged to anyone.
He doesn't. He's my friend.
The boy was following my command.
Then help fix this. Hold here, please. Hold, I said. He's losing blood. The last of his kind in all the realm, and you shoot him. You needed food?
Target practice.
Target practice.
I'm so sorry.
Keep that pressure on. The blame is mine. I should have kept a closer eye.
Will he die?
I will not let him. You, the arrow cut a tideway inside him. Find both ends and hold them tightly. Start with the left side. Grab it and hold. Now the right side. Hold it tight. Good. Now pull them together. Line them up.
You're a witch.
I can't finish the healing here. My home is just beyond the trees there. You will carry him. He must not die.
So I ask again, which character has the power in this scene, the authority? Obviously, it's Freya. She is totally in charge in this scene, and she's in charge immediately. She is giving commands, and Kratos is, with some hesitation and resistance, the one following them. This is unusual. Kratos doesn't often follow other people's orders, and it's even more unusual because Freya's power doesn't come with any apparent threat of violence. She isn't going to overpower Kratos if he refuses to follow her instructions. There isn't going to be a fight here, and yet she's still the one in charge. So, where is her power, her authority emanating from here? The answer is, in this scene, Freya possesses a moral authority, an ethical authority. Her power here stems from our sense of right and wrong. Kratos and Atreus have done something wrong here. They tried to kill this magical boar. Now, Freya has called them out on it and is urging them to make things right. Of course, it's important that she's also being portrayed with some pretty significant magical power as well, but she isn't using that magic to beat anyone into submission. She's using it to heal, to save a life, to make the world a little bit of a better place. This is extremely important to the story of God of War 4. Every god Kratos has ever met has been violent, manipulative, destructive, and very often downright evil, including himself. Kratos is a god too, and in his past he has been violent, destructive, maybe even evil, at the very least not good. At this point, Kratos believes that godhood itself is a kind of curse. The power of godhood corrupts, sickens, it turns people into monsters. The problem is, his son is a god too. Atreus is a god. Kratos is raising a god, what he must perceive as a sort of ticking time bomb. How can he possibly rescue his son from the curse that is godhood? Prevent his son from becoming as violent, destructive, and evil as every other god he has ever confronted? Kratos' solution at the start of the game is just to keep the truth from Atreus, to not tell him that he is a god. This is obviously not a very good solution, and not one that can last forever. So what can he do? Well, here is Freya. She is a god too. She is a god of the Vanir, and her power does not stem from violence or destruction, but from a moral high ground, from the power to heal, to command, to lead. For the first time in his life, though he doesn't actually realize it yet, Kratos is seeing a new example of what a god can be. This is the kind of god he could raise his son into. This is even the kind of god he himself could become. A moral, ethical god, a good god. However, Freya is a complicated character. She is not just a saintly paragon of virtue, some abstract example of perfection for Kratos and Atreus to aspire to. She is her own character with her own problems and her own failings. It's really good writing that Freya can both be an example of what Kratos could grow into, while at the same time being flawed and complex herself is really good storytelling and character development. Freya is, in my opinion, one of the best written characters in God of War 4. Now let's get into some backstory. Freya is a god of the Vanir of Vanaheim. She led the Vanir gods during the war between the Vanir and Aesir, when Odin attempted to conquer Vanaheim by force. Freya and the rest of the Vanir did pretty well for themselves, and eventually Mimir negotiated a truce between the two sides. The peace would be cemented by a marriage between the leaders of both factions, a marriage between Odin and Freya. For the sake of peace, Freya abandoned her home, abandoned her family, and went to live with her enemies. Until the events of Ragnarok, she would not see her home or family again. This marriage is representative of Freya's moral strength. I really don't think it can be overstated how terrible the sacrifice she made here was. She gave up everything for the sake of peace. Ask yourself, could you do this? Could you give up your family, your home, everything you've ever cared about, and go live the rest of your life with a person who tried to kill, subjugate, and enslave you and your entire race? I don't think I could. Freya's moral strength is genuinely really impressive. According to Mimir, after the marriage, things were okay for a time. Odin tried to make the relationship work. Freya became the leader of the Valkyries, a great warrior with a just cause. She and Odin had a son together, Balder, who Freya loved deeply. But like so many other mythological tales, all this was undone by a prophecy. The Norns foretold that her beloved son Balder would die, a needless death. To prevent this, Freya cast a powerful spell on Balder that granted him near invulnerability and immortality. This spell would have disastrous consequences. It would destroy Freya's relationship with her son, poison her relationship with Odin, lead her to exile, and ultimately lead to Balder's death, the loss of the very person she was trying to protect in the first place. A side effect of the invulnerability spell was a loss of physical feeling. Balder is incapable of any physical sensation. His body became numb. Think of how much of the pleasure in your life derives from your sense of touch. You could not feel warmth. You could not feel softness. You could not feel the texture of food in your mouth. You could not feel physical intimacy with a partner. Imagine how muted life would become without a sense of touch. Balder was, to put it lightly, resentful. He came to hate his mother for what she had done to him. Odin, himself terrified of his own mortality, wanted to know the secret of this spell, and Freya refused him. Afterwards, he dropped the loving act he had been putting on and exiled her to Midgard, cast a curse on her so she would never be able to leave, never be able to return to her home or family again. Eventually, Balder's quest for vengeance would lead him to crossing paths with Kratos, and his own death. This is a deep tragedy. In her attempt to save someone she cared about, instead Freya lost everything again for a second time. But this is also what makes her moral strength so impressive. At the start of God of War 4, despite everything she's lost, despite her exile, despite being cut off from her home and family, despite being scorned by her husband and son, despite her loneliness, she appears very healthy. The world of God of War 4 tends to be pretty bleak. But look how full of color, light, and life Freya's home is. Look how warm the colors are here, how vibrant. In the often dreary, deadly, and lifeless world of Midgard, Freya's home is a bastion of warmth and light. In spite of everything that has happened to her, she has built a very comfortable and cozy home, keeps herself busy, has formed new relationships with the local magical wildlife. Her house is a freaking giant turtle, like, come on. She is making the absolute best of a bad situation, and it's genuinely kind of inspiring. However, there is a darkness within Freya, a brokenness, even a sort of illness. It takes a long time for it to become apparent, but eventually the player does see it. For a long while, Freya serves as a sort of guide and helper to Kratos and Atreus. She has a lot of answers, a lot of power, and is willing to go out of her way to help them. The first time you'll get a sense that there's more to Freya than this image of the benevolent, perfectly generous goddess she's been putting on is when she revives Mimir. So, to free Mimir from his imprisonment, Kratos chops off the dude's head, and then they bring that head to Freya, and she brings it back to life. There is some resentment here, since Mimir was the one who negotiated her marriage to Odin, which kind of ended up ruining her entire life, but she goes through with the revival anyway. However, she secretly casts an enchantment on Mimir. She makes it so he is incapable of remembering anything about Baldur. Baldur is, of course, Freya's son, and while he hates her and they have no relationship whatsoever and haven't spoken in years, she still deeply loves him and is still willing to go to extreme lengths to ensure he doesn't come to harm. Again, there is a darkness within Freya, a very deep and well-hidden darkness. She is fixated on Baldur's safety to a pretty extreme degree, even after all these years. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, she's his mother, of course she's obsessed with her child's safety, but that spell she cast on him is really extreme. It's the real-life equivalent of locking your son in a bubble against his will to make sure he can never be hurt. That would be a crazy thing to do. Part of being a parent also involves, when your kids grow up, allowing them to journey out into the world on their own, however dangerous it might be, and respect them enough as individuals to take their own risks. Freya is psychologically incapable of doing that. The idea of her son's death is so terrifying to her that she goes to the most extreme lengths possible to keep him safe. To see the first real hint of that darkness in Freya, let's watch this clip.
Wait. Where did you get those? The arrows. Give them to me, now!
They were a gift.
Do as she says, boy.
These arrows are dangerous. They're wicked. You find any more, you destroy them, understand? Do you understand? Say it!
I understand. If I see them, I'll destroy them.
It's all I ask. Forgive me. Please, take my arrows in their place. I have no need for them anymore.
What's happening here is that Baldur's invulnerability has one weakness, mistletoe. If he is struck by mistletoe, his invulnerability will vanish and he will be able to die again. Atreus has been gifted mistletoe arrows, and when Freya sees them, she freaks the freak out. She has a serious overreaction. You can see it in both Kratos and Atreus' reactions that they're like, whoa, this lady is crazy. This is the first time you see that darkness within Freya. There's an emotional instability within her, even mental instability, and it is pretty dramatic. How do we explain this? How do we explain why Freya, who seems otherwise so well put together, becomes sort of hysterical when confronted with anything that might have a chance of threatening Baldur's safety? I think there are two explanations. First of all, Freya isn't as put together as she seems. She has been deeply wounded by all of the terrible things that have happened to her, all the loss, all the loneliness. She's just really good at hiding it, at putting on an appearance of health and normalcy. To see the second reason, we're gonna watch another clip. This is from much later in the game, when Atreus has fallen ill, and Freya and Kratos are discussing how Kratos needs to tell Atreus the truth about his nature. And here Freya is going to reveal the history of her own relationship with her son.
Are you still ill?
I can break the fever, but to heal...
He must know the truth of what he is.
Yes.
It is not so simple.
Help me prop him up. Did I tell you that I have a son, too? It's been forever since I last saw him. At his birth, the runes foretold a needless death. The babe in my arms was so small, so helpless. I knew right then I would do anything to protect him, no matter the sacrifice. Of course, everything I did for myself. I let my needs, my fears, come before what he needed. And I couldn't see his resentment until it was too late. Don't make the same mistake. Have faith in him. I know the truth isn't simple, but nothing is when it involves your child.
It is a curse. The boy has been cursed.
Pay particular attention to that line. I would do anything to protect him, no matter the sacrifice. The reason Freya is holding it together at all is because Baldur is still alive and safe. Remember, all of this, the exile, the loss of her family, it all happened to Freya as a result of the invulnerability spell she cast on Baldur. I think she justifies all this to herself by saying, I've sacrificed everything for the sake of my son's safety. So long as my son is still alive and safe, losing all of this was worth it. Everything that's happened to me was worth it, so long as he lives. And that means that if Baldur dies, then all of her sacrifices weren't worth anything, were pointless, meaningless. If you think about it through this lens, I think it explains a lot about why Freya does what she does in Ragnarok. I've seen a lot of players who are confused or frustrated with Freya's choices. At the start of Ragnarok, people ask, why is she behaving this way? It doesn't make sense to me. But we'll get into that more later. Something else interesting about this scene is that Freya says that she regrets casting that spell on Baldur against his will, even acknowledges that what she did was wrong, that it was selfish, that she was protecting herself as much as she was protecting Baldur, protecting herself from the grief of his eventual loss. However, even though she says this, her actions tell a different story. She's not actually ready to give up that invulnerability spell. She's not ready to let Baldur face the perils of the world without it. We saw it in her extreme overreaction to Atreus' mistletoe arrows. We'll see it again in the final confrontation of the game, when Baldur's invulnerability actually is dispelled, and her reaction then is pretty extreme too. Freya is a character who knows the choice she made was selfish and wrong, and yet cannot bring herself to make a different choice. She cannot let her son die. No matter the sacrifice, even if it means doing wrong, even if it means causing him to hate her. Moving forward with the plot, Kratos and Freya actually have a bit of a falling out. Kratos didn't know that she was a god of the Norse pantheon. When he finds out, he is angry. He feels lied to. Kratos has been manipulated and hurt by almost every god in the Greek pantheon, and so he is deeply distrustful of gods. He basically tells Freya to go screw herself and storms off. Their next interaction is extremely important, so we're gonna watch it in a clip. This clip will explain why Kratos respects Freya as much as he does, even though she is a god, why he is so resistant later to face her in battle, to hurt her, why he tries so hard to return peace to their relationship. So here it is.
Freya! Open the door! We need your help! Woman, do you hear me? It is urgent!
I'm still a god. Go away.
The boy has fallen ill! Freya! He's ill.
Inside. This is no ordinary illness. The boy's true nature, your true nature, fights within him.
I did this to him. Will you help me? Then I must return home. Dig up a past I swore would stay buried.
Who you were before doesn't matter. This boy is not your past, he is your son. And he needs his father. This rune opens the bridge to Helheim. When you are there, do not under any circumstances cross the bridge of the damned. There is no road back. Understand?
Boy.
Himmele, you must hurry. Through my garden, there's a path leading to my boat. Take it. Return home. Dig up your past. Do whatever you need to do. Just bring me back the Bridgekeeper's heart, and your son may survive.
Freya. When last we spoke, I was...
No. You were right to distrust the word of a god. No need to explain. Not to me, not for that. I will keep him safe. That's a mother's promise.
What's happened here is that Atreus has fallen mortally ill. Kratos, as any parent would be, is terrified. He doesn't know what to do. He can't do anything. Remember how I started this essay by talking about power? I said earlier that, by the rules of this action video game universe, where power is measured by physical strength, by the ability to vanquish your foes, surely Kratos must be the most powerful being in this world. And yet, in spite of all his incredible power, his unbelievable might, even though he can defeat literally any foe in battle, god or demon or mythological force, he can do nothing for his sick son here. In this moment, he is powerless. And he knows it. Listen to the panic in his voice, the fear. This is the most anxious and afraid Kratos has ever been in any of the games. Kratos is also very alone in these games. He has purposefully isolated himself from the world to protect the world from himself. He has no friends or family. He is used to dealing with all of his problems on his own. And when he is finally faced with a problem for which he can do nothing on his own, he has no one to turn to, no one except Freya. As soon as she hears that Atreus is sick, Freya does everything she can to help, immediately, without hesitation. Notice that moment when he asks so pitifully, "Will you help me?" And her answer is, "Of course." I just spent a lot of time talking about the darkness within Freya, but there's also a tremendous amount of good in her too. To have such good and darkness mingled within her, she is a truly complex character. I really can't say enough about how well written I think her character is. And I think part of the reason she is so willing to help is because she sees another parent in pain, another parent about to lose their child, and she knows that pain, understands it, how awful it is, and doesn't want anyone else to have to feel that way. But I also think Freya would help almost any injured or ill person who showed up on her doorstep. I think she is a genuinely compassionate character who has both the power and the will to help whoever she can. Which makes the transformation she undergoes between games, when after the death of Baldur she becomes that angel of vengeance, who cares for nothing but causing pain to those who have wronged her, so much more tragic, so much sadder. Anyway, this is the reason why Kratos absolutely refuses to fight Freya in Ragnarok. At his lowest, most pitiful, most powerless moment, she helped him without hesitation or question, and he will never forget it. Before we move on to the finale of the game, we need to talk a little bit more about Freya and Baldur's relationship. The strange thing about their relationship is that we actually know very little about what Freya thinks of her son. We know a lot about what Baldur thinks of Freya. We know he resents her for casting the invulnerability spell on him against his will, hates her, even wants to kill her, that he harbors absolutely no affection or love for his mother, no desire for a relationship. But what does Freya think of Baldur? What are her feelings towards him? Obviously, we know that she still cares deeply for his safety, that she's still willing to go to extreme lengths to ensure his safety, even that she regrets casting the spell. We know she still loves him and wants a relationship with him. However, Balder is a frankly bad person. He is vindictive, hateful, a bully, someone who enjoys hurting others, who doesn't seem to care about anyone but himself, someone willing to kill his own mother. Freya loves him still, sure. A lot of parents still love their children in spite of their flaws. There are a lot of convicted murderers sitting in prison cells right now who have parents who still love them unconditionally. But what does Freya think about him? What is her perception of Balder? Does she recognize what a terrible person he is? Can she see his flaws? Does she blame herself for how full of hate he is? Or does she blame Odin? Does she think Balder can be redeemed? That he can still embark on another path? Or has she given up on him? Does she see his flaws at all? Some parents are blind to their children's faults. Some parents truly cannot believe their children are anything other than perfect little angels. Is Freya one of those kinds of parents? We don't know. Freya doesn't talk very much about Balder in either of these games. She doesn't say almost anything about how she feels about him, or his choices beyond desiring his safety. I find this gap in her character to be somewhat frustrating. I really wish we knew more here. I wish at some point during Ragnarok, she would say anything about Balder and who he was as a person. But she just doesn't, unless I completely missed a line of dialogue somewhere. And if I did, do please let me know. But now we need to move on to the finale of God of War 4, to Freya's final interactions with her son. So let's watch it. And as you watch, remember the journey that Freya has been on. She lost everything for the sake of protecting Balder, sacrificed everything. Her home, her family, her freedom, her emotional health. She knows her choice was wrong, and yet she cannot make a new choice. Her son hates her for it, but all she wants is a relationship with him, and this is how it goes.
I had a feeling that hurting the big snake would bring the two of you out in the open. Do you have any idea at all, what you have cost me?
My boy.
Mother.
I'm here. Don't run away.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere, Mother.
I know that you're still angry. I know that how you feel hasn't changed, but I want you to...
How I feel? How I feel? I've spent the last 100 years dreaming of this moment. I've rehearsed everything I ever wanted to say to you, every word, to make you understand exactly what you stole from me. But now, I realize I don't need you to understand anything. I don't need you at all.
No, back off, Kratos. This has nothing to do...
This path you walk, vengeance, you will find no peace. I know.
You... I'll deal with you later. But family first. This again?
You can hear the shock in Balder's voice when he sees her. I don't think Freya realized how angry Balder would be. I don't think she realized how, over the course of all these years, her son's resentment for her had festered, how the hate grew within him, how it consumed him. I don't think she had any idea at all just how filled with hate Balder is, how useless trying to talk would be. Nothing she could say to Balder matters to him. He isn't a character who cares about talk. He is what Kratos used to be, someone who has given up everything but violence, someone for whom violence has become a way of life. He will kill and destroy and do nothing else. This is why I wish we knew a little more about what Freya thinks of Balder, because it seems to me that she really knows nothing about who her son really is. That she thought this talk ever had any chance of working shows how little she knows of who her son has become. Next, let's watch the scene where Balder loses his invulnerability and see Freya's reaction.
No, boy.
Fine.
Stop! No! Atreus! You're bleeding. Breathe, boy. Breathe!
Not my blood.
What is that? I can feel this. I can feel everything.
He's vulnerable now?
You will not do this!
What's happened here is that Atreus had some mistletoe on his bow strap, and when Balder punched him, it penetrated his hand, which dispelled the invulnerability. Freya responds with a classic Darth Vader, "No." Earlier, she said that she knew what she had done to Balder was wrong, that she should have trusted him, that the spell was a mistake. But now that her mistake has been undone, she reacts with total despair. I don't think this is an inconsistency in the writing of her character. I think this is human and relatable. I mean, think about it. How many times in your life have you done something that you knew was wrong and you still did it anyway? Freya's reaction here is very human. I also want to talk about the kind of magic Freya is wielding in this scene. Her magic is tremendously powerful. She has revived this dead giant's corpse and is using its hand to pick up Kratos and Atreus. However, she isn't using her magic to fight, to damage, to inflict harm. I talked earlier about how Freya's power in this game doesn't come from her ability to hurt others, but rather from a moral high ground, and you can see that here. She's using her incredible magic power to try to stop this fight, to put an end to violence. It's a very different use of power than we're used to seeing in the God of War franchise. Finally, we need to move on to Freya's final scene in the game, her final interaction with her son.
Stop! Please!
He's beaten, Father. Not a threat.
You will not come for us again. You will not touch her.
I don't need your protection.
Help yourself. Can you, Mother? No matter what I do or say, you won't stop interfering in my life.
I was just trying to protect you. I've made mistakes. I know. But you're free now. You have what you want. Try to find forgiveness. We can build something new.
No. We can't. Because I will never forgive. You still need to pay for the lifetime that you stole from me.
I have paid. I have paid. But if that alone will make you whole, you've seen me dead. will make things right. I won't stop you.
I know.
What? No, Father!
I love you.
At the end of the fight, Kratos defeats Baldur, and Freya begs for her son's life. Kratos relents, and then this final interaction between Freya and Baldur is fascinating. Freya's line, "I was just trying to protect you," really sums up her entire character. That is her primary motivation throughout this story. She is trying to protect her son. Everything she does is towards that singular goal. But from her son's perspective, all she's done is limit him, constrain him, block him, stand in his way. Freya is the classic archetype of the overprotective parent, the overbearing parent, not allowing her child to make their own choices. It's a common archetype because it's a common reality. There are a lot of parents out there in the world, deeply loving, who care about their children, but their love is too much. It is smothering. And then Freya's plea of, "We can build something new." I find this to be a really, really sad line, because she's right. She and Baldur could still have a relationship. They could overcome past mistakes. We just watched Kratos do exactly that. This is a world where people can change and grow. But Baldur is just so angry. He is so filled with hatred. It's impossible. You can see the moment when Freya realizes it too, when she finally accepts who her son is, accepts that he will never forgive her and never have a relationship with her. Also, that line, "I have paid." We've discussed this a lot already. Everything Freya has lost, all she sacrificed for Baldur's sake, and he really has no idea. Baldur is a character with no empathy. He cannot see beyond his own personal pain, is incapable of seeing his mother's pain. Freya accepts her death here. At the hands of her son, she is willing to die. And the thing is, as crazy as it is, as inconceivable as it might be to us, the audience, that is her choice to make. We've already talked about how everything Freya has done was for the sake of her son, that his safety meant more to her than anything, that she sacrificed everything for his safety, that his continued life was the only thing that made her sacrifices worth it from her perspective. This is just one more sacrifice for his sake. And I think Freya, who cares so much for her son, probably no longer wants to live a life where she can never have a relationship with him, where he will never forgive her. From her perspective, that's not a life worth living. She would rather die than live that life. She would rather believe her son will get some kind of closure from her death than live knowing her life causes him pain. Now let's continue the clip to see where this all goes.
Why do you even care? You could have walked away.
The cycle ends here. Must be better than this.
No, my boy! My dear sweet boy!
Freya. He chose this.
I will rain down every agony, every violation imaginable upon you. I will parade your cold body from every corner of every realm and feed your soul to the vilest filth in hell. That is my promise.
He saved your life.
He robbed me of everything. Everything. You were just an animal. passing on your cruelty and rage. You will never change.
And you do not know me.
I know enough. Does he?
I've seen a lot of people who are confused by Freya's reaction here. They ask, why is she so upset? Kratos just saved her life. She should be thanking him. She shouldn't be this angry. I hope that, if you've watched this entire video up to this point, you get it. You understand her reaction. She sacrificed everything for her son, and she made the choice to die here. She accepted that death. Then Kratos took that choice away from her, ironically sort of doing to her exactly what she had done to Baldur when she made a choice for him, a choice that affected his entire life against his will. From Freya's perspective, Kratos has undone all her sacrifice. I've said it 100 times, and now I'll say it again. She sacrificed everything for Baldur. In her words, she has paid. If Baldur dies here, what was the point of all that sacrifice? Of course, we the audience agree with Kratos in this moment. Baldur was a truly terrible person, while Freya is a genuinely good person, a force of healing and good in this broken world. The world is absolutely better off with her alive and him dead. But this is an essay about Freya, and we're trying to understand her perspective. From this moment, that deep inner darkness within Freya that we had only seen glimpses of before is fully unleashed. The darkness was always there, the anger, the hurt. Freya had kept it bottled up before, but now she will give herself over to it totally, completely. From this moment, where before she had been a source of life and light in this story, Freya is going to become one of the darkest points in this world, utterly miserable, with no purpose beyond death and destruction. I have so much to say about Freya and her story, that I've chosen to break this essay into 2 parts, one part covering each game. This is by far the longest video essay I've written so far, and the whole thing is becoming a bit top-heavy. I will be continuing this analysis of Freya's story very soon, examining the very dramatic arc her character undergoes in God of War Ragnarok, where she starts in the abyss and then claws her way back up. So please look forward to it.